Gators Breakdown episode 116 is ready to go, hot off the meeting that Florida had with Chip Kelly. As I said, episode 116. I'm your host, David Waters. You can find me on Twitter at GatorDave_SEC. And joining me for this episode of Gators Breakdown is Bill Sykes. You can find Bill on Twitter at RealBSykes. Bill, I can't decide what's going on here with Florida. Get a little bit personal. I've been moving, within the last week or so, and in a way, Florida's helping me a little bit because with this coaching search and not naming a head coach so far, because I'm kind of moving. I'm really busy doing the personal life thing. So, we haven't, we slowed down on doing podcasts last week because of how busy we all were. Maybe Florida's just trying to help me out a little bit with the move going on and not killing me with all the work that would come along with the new coaching hire.
Yeah, I can see where you feel that way, but I think a lot of the Gator Nation feel quite the opposite. I think the Gator fans with high blood pressure are struggling this week. Let me tell you something.
Hey, I won't lie though. I can't tell you how many times my wife caught me looking at my phone when I should be carrying boxes and hooking up washers and dryers and stuff. What are you doing? Hey, you know what's going on here. I got to keep up with this.
You just tell her, you keep loading my boxes. I got to go update the Twitter.
And then watch the game against UAB. Hey, Gators finally got a win, Bill. Got off that losing streak.
Yeah, and hey, Dave, if you do tell her that, I will visit you in the hospital. Just so you know.
You have met her, so yeah, it's kind of a no nonsense.
She will hurt you, man.
All right, guys. Remember, you can find all your Gators Breakdown episodes on SoundCloud, iTunes, and YouTube. Just search on those sites or get the links by following Gators Breakdown on Twitter and on Facebook at Gators Breakdown. Hey, look, when you're on iTunes, please rate and review the show. Let Gator Nation know what they're getting with Gators Breakdown. And I guess we should preface this, Bill, by saying a lot of the stuff that we're going to say in this podcast, talking about Florida's connection with Chip Kelly, a lot of it is opinion based on, and I know the popular word right now is sources. Everybody's got a source right now. And, you and I have a couple, and we're not saying they're better than anybody else's sources out there, but the sources that we have, some of them are connected. You have some that I don't have, and I have some you don't have. And, we hear mostly the same thing the last couple of days. So, we should preface this by saying a lot of our opinion comes from what we're hearing from those sources.
Yeah, that's right. We've been blessed to have met some people and built some rapport and trust with some people that are connected to the program, connected to other programs, just connected to college football in other ways. And so there's a good diversified array of information coming there from different points of view. And what we've seen from that is some consistencies emerge, and not just with this issue, but with issues prior. Like when we had heard before Jim McElwain was fired, he was going to be fired. And so first of all, to those who are listening that have provided us with information, thank you sincerely for continuing to try to help us pass along info. Because, guys, for all of you who are listening out there, we're Gator fans. We're football fans. Dave and I have been following this stuff for a long time, and we understand how frustrating it can be to be in the dark. And I came up, personally, I can't speak for Dave, but, I came up reading the Florida Times-Union when it came to recruiting and updates and buying, magazines, and then eventually was onto several different websites and paying for premium content, which there's still some great ones out there to get that. But I remember the guys that were connected would come on there to tell us, kind of these nebulous rumors, and they can only share so much. And I know what it's like to be frustrated by that. And so please don't think that we're trying to be prima donnas or trying to grab the spotlight by saying, hey, look, this is what we've heard. We can't confirm it. It's just we understand the role of the major media outlets and the newspapers and how they're going to be very black and white and go from official school channels and things like that with the information. But we want to kind of add to that and say, look, here's what we've heard from people that are in the know. We believe that this is reliable information, but we can't confirm it to the same level of scrutiny. And so you have every right to say, wait a minute, that's not, something that should be reported in the news. We, as Gators Breakdown, are trying to add to the conversation, keep you informed as best we can.
Oh, I think I lost Bill there for a second.
You got me back there?
Oh, there we go. Gotcha.
How long was I out there?
Oh, no, you probably 5 seconds.
Okay. Well, I told you what was going to happen in those 5 seconds, so sorry. I'm not going to say it again.
Oh, if we missed it, oh well. But yeah, Bill, you're right. Then we're not saying they're right. We're not saying we're right, but like I said, this is going to be our opinion, and thanks for trusting us out there. And look, the stuff we do share and the stuff we don't share, it's not that we're trying to hide stuff. We want to be absolutely right when we come out and say who this next head coach is. If we say it early in the process or before the official word comes from the University of Florida. So, there's a lot of stuff out there, but as if we had to put a number on it, I think we may go into that later, but we feel pretty confident in where things stand with Chip Kelly. So of course that's why the podcast we were doing is really going to feature on him, because he is the main name out there right now, and it seems a lot of connections seem to go towards Chip Kelly.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think Dave, you and I think we're on the same page here, that I think we're pretty confident that he's going to be the guy. And like I said, we've heard this from various angles. I know Thomas Goldkamp has provided some good information on the Gator Bait forums, if you want to check those out on 24/7 Sports Network. You want to talk about Tyler Fallbush a little bit and what happened with that?
I had some stuff sent my way before he came out with his tweet that said it was a done deal with Chip Kelly, and his dad, Andy, was on the search committee for the athletic director when Scott Strickland was hired. So pretty connected source there. And it came out, and he said that he would like to basically welcome Chip Kelly as head coach of the University of Florida. It's a connected source, and he later tweeted that his source was not his dad.
I do not believe him.
I think that was damage control.
I'm sorry, Tyler. We appreciate you sharing, but I don't believe you.
Yeah, I kind of think Scott Strickland was like, hey, what's he doing? What is he doing? So, I kind of agreed there. It was kind of damage control at that point. But that's a close source, and kind of one of the first ones to come out and say something. And me and my wife had to leave the house for a little while. We were shopping around Target, and I see that, and I'm like, we got to get home. So something may be coming down pretty fast. And that's another thing I guess we should say. Now, I'll kind of go through a timeline a little bit. But Sunday night, it was sorry, my throat's struggling a little bit. Last week we started hearing Chip would be the guy from some people. We were hearing it was pretty close. And then Sunday comes around, and various reports and sources confirmed that athletic director Scott Strickland, University president Fox, Executive Associate Athletics Director for External Affairs Mike Hill, Executive Associate Athletic Director for Internal Affairs Larry Veach, Executive Associate Athletic Director for Administrations Linda Teeler, Senior Associate Athletic Director Steve McLean, flew to New Hampshire to meet with Chip Kelly. Now there are conflicting stories out there as to what went down with that meeting. Sources I trust, as we've said, and many of them say that a deal has been done, and Chip Kelly is coming to Florida. But then you have reporters out there like Pat Dooley, Robbie Andrew, and Andy Staples saying a deal hasn't been done, and that Chip Kelly could be in play for the UCLA job. We'll get into that later too. But in my opinion, you don't send the reps Florida sent unless they're going up there to get a deal signed. Now I know the UCLA story of them firing Jim Moore came out when the flight was up in the air and they were on their way, but everyone knew that that job had a great chance of coming open. Florida had a great head start here. I can't see UCLA being able to catch up that quick when I think Florida was on their way up to New Hampshire to get a deal done. You send the people Florida sent. Those are people who draft contracts. Then you had Steve McLean, who really kind of handles the media relations part of Florida. He's probably there to, hey, when do we announce this? How do we announce this? I think with the people who went up there, they're not coming back empty-handed. I think those people involved who went up there had to be involved to figure out how to attack this after Chip Kelly signed the contract. That's just my opinion. I don't know. I mean, like I said, we've had people say that it was signed, but I think the people who went up there and gave the go-ahead and wanted to meet Chip Kelly and get the signature, those are the people in my mind that moved this thing forward. Yeah,
and listen, like we said, we've heard from several angles here, angles that we trust as reliable, connected sources for this kind of content are telling us that this deal is either signed or it's agreed to and done, and that everything is good to go for Chip Kelly to become the coach at UF. And as you mentioned, it's been verified that the plane went up there, I believe it's verified that President Fox was on the plane. And let me explain to our listeners why you don't go up there to do that to negotiate. For one thing, you wouldn't just send the president like up there to beg in an entourage like that. You don't have to do that at the University of Florida. This is not like you're trying to get him to go coach at Marshall or something like that. But it's also important that you don't send those guys up there unless it is to put the ink on the paper or to put the capstone on the agreement in however form that is. And that's because you can't let your prestige take a hit in the eyes of the recruits, because if, let's say, this doesn't work out and they go get Dan Mullen. Well, now every time Dan Mullen goes to recruit a quarterback, receiver, defensive lineman, or whatever, every coach that is recruiting that kid to their school is going to say, they didn't even want Dan Mullen. They wanted Chip Kelly. He burned them and he left them at the altar and he went to UCLA. Well, now you have crippled the recruiting of your new coach before he even gets hired. And so it's just not something that's done. That's why every time they step to the podium, they're going to say, this is the guy we targeted from the beginning. This is the guy that's number one on our list. He's the guy that we targeted from the beginning to lead us back to greatness. So I agree with Dave here. They did not fly up for any other reason than to finish this one off in whatever form that took. However, as I'm sure you're kind of going to get to here in a minute, Dave, there's other reasons why we may not have heard. Even if it's signed or not, we could have a positive outcome or negative outcome under these circumstances. I've actually got 3 of those reasons if you kind of want to throw yours out there first.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And before we get there, Bill, I did mention the Jim Mora, the announcement that he was getting fired kind of came, I want to say, around the 2 to 3 o'clock hour, somewhere around that time. And the plane was up in the air, headed that way to New Hampshire. Do you agree with the fact that we probably knew UCLA was coming open? Jim Mora hot seat talk has been a hot topic in college football this season, and he has a $12 million buyout. So that was one reason people thought it may not happen. But wouldn't you think that Chip Kelly, his agent, by the way, is a graduate, is an alum of UCLA? Don't you think they would have known that was a possibility? And as we have just talked about, Florida's going up there, where I'm sure in a contract in hand to get signed. I have a hard time imagining that announcement of Jim Mora being fired come into play as to why he would not have signed a contract on Sunday.
Okay, yeah, let's address that right now. People are saying, oh, UCLA throwing a wrench. I want to be very clear about this. These 2 organizations, the UCLA football program and the University of Florida football program, combined to bring in about $225 million per year of revenue. And you've got a millionaire coach in a high-profile business. There is no way on earth that Chip Kelly was, sitting at a table with his agent and they were negotiating. He's like, hey, I'm going to take this Florida job. This is my best opportunity. He said, holy crap, don't sign that. UCLA just fired their coach. You're not going to believe this. There's absolutely no way that happened. These things are discussed well in advance through proxies where they, because of tampering rules and legal obligations, they're not going to just pick up the phone and call the guy. They send an emissary, whether it be a lawyer that's a friend of the program or whoever, just a third party. They have been communicating all this out, I guarantee you, for a while. Chip Kelly has had a good idea of who his options were for a while. I'm sure Florida and UCLA have had a good idea of who their options were for a while. I'm not saying, even though I think he ends up at Florida, I'm not saying it's impossible for Chip Kelly to end up at UCLA, but I'm telling you it is extremely unlikely that this turned on a dime because of Jim Mora's fire.
Agree here. And, we talked about reasons why this might not be announced. But first, hey, something new on Gators Breakdown. First sponsor, Bill. There we go. Look at there.
We have sold out to the man.
We have sold out. I know. But Gators Breakdown is brought to you by Morty, Morty, the newest and smartest way to get a home mortgage. If you've ever bought a home, you know that the mortgage process can be some of the most confusing and painful hours of your life. Now, you guys know I recently bought a house, and to find a lender that fits needs for me and my family and doing all the research myself for rates took entirely way too much time. I really needed to find a way to make the process fast and worry-free. Morty makes it fast and easy. Morty not only simplifies the process, but they help you find the smartest mortgage that's right for you. Just input your information into Morty's secure website, and in less time than it takes to hear this ad, you can shop qualified rates from different lenders. With Morty, you'll get real loan options in minutes without ever being called or sold by a mortgage broker. And by shopping loans from different lenders, you're able to pick the rate and term that fits your needs. In addition to that, Morty can automatically generate a pre-approval letter online for you in minutes, which will help you speed up the home buying process and talk confidently to realtors and sellers. Morty wants to save you money. At Morty, there's no commission salespeople, so their experts exist solely to get you the best deal possible. If you ever get stuck or have questions, someone from Morty's team is always ready to assist you over real-time chat or on the phone. So whether you're a first-time home buyer looking to refinance or buying an investment property, head on over to trymorty.com/gators to get started today. That's TRYMORTY, trymorty.com/gators. Morty Inc. is a licensed mortgage broker, equal housing lender, www.nmlsconsumeraccess.org, 1429243. So, Bill, 2 reasons I'm going to give for why Florida might be waiting to announce. Randy Shannon had a quote after the UAB game, and I think that really kind of spoke to me a little bit. But the first is out of respect to these current players and coaching staff. Now, I don't necessarily agree with this, but apparently there is a lot of respect for Randy Shannon from the administration, and plus it's rivalry week versus FSU, and they might, want to see the team give them their best chance to focus on the game better without all the hoopla surrounding a new head coach. So I think that is one way to look at it, because Randy Shannon after the game said he kind of wanted to thank Scott Strickland for letting these players focus on the game, and I kind of think that was a shot of about all the kind of coaching talk going on around the program right now.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that one is actually not on my list. But, I mean, listen, the fans and the kids that are playing the game out here and the coaches that are finishing up deserve a chance to finish strong and try to recoup a little bit of just find something good at the end of the season, go out on a good note. It's always good to beat FSU. So I can see that. I can see that. I mean, they deserve every shot to get that done without distraction in a season that's been entirely chock full of distractions. So maybe he doesn't feel like it's right to pile on after everything they've been through.
And I'm trying to build. This is just going off the top of my head here. I just don't ever remember, especially in big time college football and these big programs, I don't ever remember a head coach anywhere being hired before a season has ended. I mean, I just don't. Off the top of my head, I don't ever remember a head coach being fired before the last game or hired before the last game of the current season.
I don't either. I can't remember that either. I mean, I remember Urban Meyer kind of lurking on the sidelines of Ohio State at the bowl game when they played Florida during Will Muschamp's first season. But you're right. I can't really think of one off the top of my head either.
Yeah, yep. And another reason, I don't know if this is one of yours, Bill. It may be, but the other could be, and there's some conflicting reports about this, of whether Chip Kelly is still getting paid from the 49ers job and may have to wait until Florida's season officially is over to be named head coach. So he can get payout money of $5 million from the 49ers. So there's some conflicting reports. Trey Wallace says from his knowledge that is not true, but other sources are saying that is an issue here. So that may be why Florida is having to wait to officially name Chip Kelly head coach, is because he needs to get he needs to get that money from the NFL that he's pretty much due.
Yeah, that one is on my list, and let me just explain that in layman's terms here. And I don't want to be condescending, but some people may not have ever been introduced to this concept. And sometimes these contracts, if you exit a job before your contract is over, the employer, if they were the initiating agent of that termination, they will owe you money. Because they didn't let you work out the end of your contract. But if you go and get a job before the end of the contract is reached, well, then they don't have to pay it to you anymore. And so basically what this theory says is that Chip Kelly is owed money by the 49ers, and if he signs before the end of the football season, it's possible that he could lose money they owe him and that Florida would be responsible for that money. But if he waits a week, then he gets $5 million from them, and then he can make his money from Florida. And on top of that, there's been some rumors that he has not asked for a huge amount of money from Florida, that it might be in the $4 million range per year. And so that might have been the reason that he was willing to, to leave some meat on the bone, so to speak, giving Florida money to spend on assistants. So, and, as a matter of fact, this theory was tweeted out tonight by the Buddy Martin show. They're saying they have confirmation from their sources that is in fact the case. And so I think Buddy Martin does a pretty good job with his information. So it'll be interesting to see if that holds true.
Yeah, it is interesting. And I'm glad you brought up the point where we have heard that Chip Kelly won't ask for a lot because he wants to pay his assistants. He wants to get a high-profile recruiting staff with his team, and we've heard that from different sources going about that recruiting is going to be very big from Chip Kelly. Not necessarily maybe himself, but he needs to surround himself with guys that know the state of Florida, that know the SEC, and know that what it takes to go up against Georgia, to know what it goes against. Up against FSU and up against Alabama, all these teams you have to fight for recruits in the state of Florida.
Yeah, that's right. I think Chip Kelly is coming in here to make a splash, and I have been told various things on what his ultimate goal is. I don't think it's fair of Florida fans to expect him to be a 10 or 15-year coach here. I have heard from at least one person that he may want to use this as a springboard to come in and win big, get Florida back on track, and then maybe go take another shot in the NFL. But listen, I would love to have him stay for 30 years and win 30 national championships. But if the guy comes in and he hires a big-time recruiting staff and he reloads the rosters and he fixes the offense and brings an SEC title, maybe a little more to the program, hey, he's fulfilled his end of the deal. So I'm all for it. At this point, I just think this is a great potential hire for Florida. And yeah, we have heard that they're looking to spend on coaches. I've had the chance to get a look at some of the names they're looking at, and I think that there's some potential for a very good staff here.
All right, Bill, I gave a couple of reasons, and one of those was on your list. But why are some other reasons you think Florida may be waiting to announce Chip Kelly or, I guess, other coaches, if they could be up for this head coaching job for Florida?
Well, first of all, let me just say, based on what we've heard from Buddy Martin and, just a few others now, and this wasn't from one of my sources, I kind of tend to believe that this could be a contractual conflict or whatever. But there's two other ones, and they're not as fun. I'll give you the worst one, and that's that, they flew up there because we firmly believe they went up there to seal the deal, and that for whatever reason, things went sideways and they came home without a signature and they're in limbo. Now, let me add, going back to the other thing about the money with the 49ers, it's very possible that they can't post-date a signature, that he cannot sign papers until whatever arbitrary date has been established. I don't know what it is. So it may be that they've agreed and he has not signed and that all's well, and we'll find out when that date passes. But if they didn't get a signature and it went sideways, that would be very, very, very bad. And I would be on this show not spinning it. Some people might try to spin it. I don't think many people would. I cannot remember an administration flying up to go get their coach, and coming home empty-handed and then going to a lesser program. And that's not – I'm not a guy that likes to, see who's taller all the time versus other college football programs as a fan. UCLA is cool and everything, but they're just not what Florida is in the national picture, nor have they been for a long time.
Yeah, I'll get into that later too. So yeah,
and I got some info on that. Okay. So that would be very bad, guys, and we're not even going to really talk about all the ways that would be bad, unless it turns out to be true, and I don't think it is at this point. And the other one, which you kind of touched on briefly, is that Scott Strickland could be orchestrating the delay to control the narrative. I mean, you got to remember, this is a new athletic director that has taken over. Let's face it, it's a Ferrari of a program. It's the land of Tim Tebow and Steve Spurrier and Urban Meyer, and he's wanting to make his mark, and he's got an opportunity to come in here and erase the string, and no disrespect to these coaches, but Ron Zook and Will Muschamp, who may have been a good coach, but he certainly wasn't ready for Florida, and the administration may not have been ready for him. And and we get into that on another show coming up. And also Jim McElwain. There's a lot of stain right now in the recent history. I think Strickland wants to come in and make a big hire and get this program right. And so the timing of that announcement to generate hype, for whatever reason he is determined on when it needs to happen, he could be delaying that by his own devices.
Yeah. So Bill, this just popped up in my head. With all the Chip Kelly talk, pretty much the last week or so, we had our one show last week where it was he was our main focus as well. Do you think Florida's keeping tabs on other coaches as well?
Oh yeah, man. Again, I'm gonna go back to they bring in $120 million a year in revenue. With that kind of money involved, when you have an organization of this magnitude, yes, you cannot afford to be like, okay, well, we're all in with Chip Kelly. Unless that ink is on the paper, you're going to be on the phone with the Willie Taggarts, the world, Dan Mullins, or whoever it is they've got in number 2 or number 3, whether it's Frost or whoever. I'm not trying to throw those guys out there as a list. I'm just saying whoever that may be that they've established as their backup plans. Yeah, they've got to keep correspondence, and I mean, you can't afford not to. I mean, it's not restocking the Twinkies at 7-Eleven. You know what I mean?
And I'm not saying they haven't done it already. I'm just saying at this point and where we're at now, and we know they flew up to New Hampshire. They did. I guess at this point, I guess it kind of can be questioned. Are they keeping tabs on other guys right now? And that's just because we don't know for 100% certainty that a deal was signed.
Yeah, we don't, and it would be grossly incompetent if they did not have, a fallback plan, a contingency. But guys, I'm sure they do. I mean,
yeah. Wouldn't Scott Frost be the only other name if it was not Chip Kelly that this would not be looked at as a colossal failure?
Well, I like Bill Belichick. But
well, I'm just saying in the realistic names.
yeah. I mean, in the realistic names, if you're talking about Frost, it could easily be spun that the Kelly thing was a smokescreen, and I think that would be plausible. I don't believe that would be the case as far as public perception if they hire Mullen, if they hire Taggart, personally, or Norvell. The more I look at the situation, the more I think Taggart could be a great fit at Florida, although that passing game still concerns me.
They did get their quarterback, though, and put up some points this past week.
Yeah, you know what, man? And I don't want that guy to FSU.
That's the problem, yeah.
I mean, I hope we don't look back and regret not hiring Taggart in the long run, but he's probably my backup plan if I'm making a decision right now.
Gotcha. So I guess we could probably move on to the next topic, Bill. And you want to talk some UCLA and what they bring to the table?
Yeah, because again, I'm not one that likes to talk smack. I pick on Tennessee just because it's too easy. But
and your Kentucky rant earlier this year.
Yeah, they brought that on themselves. If
any new listeners out there and we don't know what we're talking about, go look at it was post Kentucky show, right?
Yeah, that's right. They mistake my kindness for weakness.
Yeah, Bill put it to some Kentucky fans. That was pretty funny. So, we're looking at some UCLA talk here because that is the program now who would seem to be in the running as well for Chip Kelly. Hey, look, their athletic revenue almost at $100 million. Florida's $144 million. So Florida athletic revenue much higher there. UCLA's profit for their football program back in 2015, just over $10 million. U.S. profit for its football program, just over $47 million. So you're looking at a $37 million difference there if money comes into play here. So my thing is for Chip, what does he see as more important and more suited for his lifestyle? Does he want the fame and pressure of being the Gators head coach, or would he like the less scrutinized position of a UCLA head coach, and would that be a better fit for him and his personality? He's dealt with the Philadelphia media and the circus that went on there with Deshaun Jackson and LaShawn McCoy. We talked about a lot of that last week in our last show. So I don't think the Florida media will really get to him. It's all about which school is a better fit for what he wants to do. And to me, that place is Florida. And I'm sure I can be biased in that, and I probably am. Florida can play his assistants well. But here's a reason I look at that in a different kind of way. A head coach makes enough money to where state income tax isn't that big of a deal. But what about the assistant coaches under him? It would be easier to get assistants when looking at the monetary value of living in Florida, because Florida can spend more, I think, than UCLA just to begin with on assistants. Hey, look, and there's no state income taxes. So you're looking at assistant coaches that don't make as much money as the head coach. They're making 500 grand, 600 grand. You got that big state income tax in California that eats out of their pocket. So I think you would be less likely to get the big assistance you would want if you're Chip Kelly if you go to UCLA. So, and as we've mentioned, we've heard Chip may not be taking on that huge of a salary in the range probably of $4 to $5 million if he comes to Florida, and he wants to pay big time assistants. So in that area, Florida can do much better. And the state of Florida works better in that role.
Yeah, I think honestly, it just kind of sidetracks from whether or not it's a good fit for him, and I don't mean to distract from that, but just kind of sidetracking for a second at UCLA. You figure if Florida's going to pay him in the 4.5 range, and again, we've only heard whispers of that. That's not necessarily something we feel confident in saying. This is from our source, But that means that to ante up to the table, before the bidding up part starts happening, they're going to have to come in at $5 million just to have a seat at the table. And now you're talking about a program that's number 29 in revenue nationally. They're not even a top 25 program in revenue. They were paying $3.5 million a year to Mora. They have a $12.2 million buyout left for him. So you're asking a number 29 program in revenue to step up to the plate and probably end up paying, it could be $5 to $7 million a year plus a $12 million buyout, putting him in the top, one of the top maybe 5 paid head coaches in the country. I think that's a little rich for their blood. I honestly do. But as far as whether he's a good fit there, I could see the lifestyle, but everybody says Kelly's a little bit of a different animal. So I try not to generalize that too much by assuming, oh, he was at Oregon, so he wants to go to the Pac-12. I mean, this guy's clearly ambitious. This is an individual who clearly has something to prove. He's got gas in the tank. And, like I've mentioned, I've heard that he may want another shot at the NFL one day. And maybe you can make the case that that's an easier path. I mean, with the Pac-12 South, and that's, not exactly a murderer's row. But if he wants the spotlight and he wants to prove that he's one of the best football coaches of our time, which I think he has a chance to do at Florida, because if he comes in and wins an SEC championship and turns his offense into a buzzsaw like he did at Oregon and then gets back to the NFL, well, then you're putting him in a whole different ring of coaches in the discussion. Yeah, if he wants that, then Florida's clearly the choice.
Yeah, and and you would hope if he comes to Florida, he's in the recent of coaches of having success of course coming from the NFL, like Saban, and having that type of success, Jim Harbaugh, to a degree, of having success as a college coach. So, Bill, I think also when you look at, and I know you're going to go a couple ways and a couple routes on this. But when you compare the two, hey, look, recruiting comes into play here too. You can't gloss over that fact. And you can look at that 2 different ways. He knows the West Coast best from his days at Oregon. But I also think, and again, I'm probably biased here, but I think he could have more success in the state of Florida. Now, one recruit that Chip needs to keep tabs on if he's head coach at Florida, just happens to be from the state of California, is Matt Corral. And he's coming off a visit to Alabama that he says went well. And he said today on Instagram Live that he is not visiting Florida this weekend if there is no head coach. It is pointless to take an official visit if there is no head coach, and I will take an official visit somewhere else. Ellipses, time is ticking in that quote. So, of course, Matt Corral's keeping an eye on this. If you follow him on social media, he's, I think even this morning or late overnight, he said, just make a decision already, kind of alluding, you could kind of say he's talking about Florida there. So he wants to see who this next head coach is going to be for Florida. He is staying committed. It looks like if Florida was to make the right hire, he would stay a Gator and keep this class glued together. But Chip Kelly, if he's agreed and going to agree to be a head coach at Florida, that is one recruit that probably needs to be his first phone call.
Yeah, this is an interesting situation, guys. Matt Corral. Okay, here's my thoughts on this. First of all, I have been hearing for a while that Matt Corral has been looking around. A while, and I caught some heat for this when I told people, and I had to reach out to a few people on this and say, hey, I've heard this and this and this. And people are like, oh, you're crazy. And then there was an article out there that said Gator fans needn't worry about Matt Corral. Well, I'm telling you, I think he's felt a little uncomfortable, or at least and I don't want to throw shade on the kid, but I feel like he kind of had some limited options when he came on board. I mean, don't forget, it was kind of a mutual parting of ways with his original commitment at USC. I don't think he had a big-time West Coast program available to him at the time. And so, when you add to the mix the instability at Florida and with McElwain on the way out, I think he has probably had these feelings for a while. However, I think this is reasonable. Look, he doesn't know who's coming in or what kind of system he's going to be in. This is one of the most important decisions of his life. I fully support that. I want him to end up a Gator. But at the same time, I'm looking at Chip Kelly's offenses. And, in his 4 years at Oregon, his quarterbacks rushed for 668 yards, 486 yards, 206 yards, and 752 yards. Is Matt Corral that kind of quarterback? And he probably is asking himself, do I want to go across the country and play in a spread option and run the read option? And I think this is something that Gator fans need to keep their eye on, and it's going to probably determine on what his options end up being.
Yeah, and I think another thing is, and we're talking about systems, is, lo and behold, what if Chip Kelly doesn't want him? I mean, what if Chip Kelly doesn't think he's a good fit for his system and what he wants to do?
Yeah, I think that's very possible. Guys, listen.
I'm not saying that's going to happen. Don't get me wrong.
I'm not either. But what you have to understand, again, I just kind of want to add from my experiences as a fan that's followed this, when a coach comes in, he's going to evaluate every recruit on that board. And while, look, Matt Corral's a heck of a ball player, but let's not be shocked if he looks at it and says, how comfortable are you carrying the ball, 5 to 10 times a game? And they may have to work on this mutually and have a discussion and see what kind of fit and get a feel for each other and see what the expectations are going to be. Now, here's the key, though. Okay, and I've been Mr. Negative there, and I know that everybody's mad at me already for the last 2 minutes conversation here. But let's consider this, too. Remember, Steve Spurrier went off to the NFL, and he came back, and his offense is a little different when he got to South Carolina, and he had a heck of a lot of success with it. It is very possible, guys, that if Chip Kelly becomes a coach at Florida and he comes in and says, hey, Matt, listen, I know what I did on the West Coast, but my offense is going to be a little different now. You're the perfect fit. Matt Corral might seal up his recruitment and all might be well, and this offense might not be quite what fans are expecting based on what we saw at Oregon, but it might be better and it might be perfect for Florida. So let's not count him out yet. I'm just saying, Gator fans, keep your eye on Matt Corral, but understand that there's several ways this could go.
Yeah, I mean, because Chip Kelly could very easily pop in a tape of Nick Foles, and you get your pro-style, a quarterback that Chip Kelly has success with in the pros. So you're right. It could be an adaptation of Chip Kelly to a player that, if he can sell, that is already committed to Florida. Hey, look, I can adapt to you. I can fit you to this system. You don't have to fit to this Oregon system. You don't have to fit to this spread up-tempo, fast-paced style football. Yes, I can do that, but I believe you're a great quarterback, and I can adapt to you. You can carry my team. So, and we've seen, Mariota was an Oregon quarterback. He's had to go to Tennessee, and I know he's not having the last couple of weeks have been very tough for him in the NFL, but, he's a serviceable NFL quarterback. So there are things you can point to and connect the dots to where it doesn't necessarily have to be that spread up-tempo, run the quarterback to death type of offense.
Yeah, and let's face it. I mean, even the last year or two, if Nussmeier had used his quarterback's legs at times and run some zone read with Franks or Del Rio, they might have got an extra 2 or 3 yards this year.
But nothing ever beats that third and long play action. Come on.
That's right.
Come on.
Maybe. I don't want to go out on a limb. I'm not guaranteeing it. At least a yard and a half. Of course.
That was good. We got to be a good people there. Bill, I know you got some other recruiting stuff, and Chip Kelly, his time at Oregon, and of course we brought up UCLA as well, and how it can relate to what he can do at Florida.
Yeah, just kind of getting back to whether UCLA might be a good fit. No sidetrack Corral there with good reason. Look, UCLA is not a prestige program lately. They've had some success in the past. They won the 1954 national championship, but they haven't won a conference title since.
Man, I remember that like it was yesterday.
Yeah, I bet you do. Yeah, and they haven't won a conference title since 1998, and they haven't won a major bowl game since the 1985 Rose Bowl, unless you count the Cotton Bowl in 1997. But as far as recruiting pull is concerned, what I did is I said, okay, how would Chip Kelly view this? Because remember, we talked last week, and I recommend our listeners go back and listen to the coverage we did about Chip Kelly at Oregon. If you want to know what kind of recruiter he was, what he accomplished there, what he might accomplish at Florida in that regard. And I said, well, let's compare the talent levels at Oregon and California and Florida, and then let's take a look at the recruiting situation when he arrived at Oregon and when he arrived at or when he might arrive if he took the UCLA job. Now, keep in mind, the state of Florida ranked second in the nation. And by the way, this information I'm about to read you, I got a lot of this from an excellent SB Nation article by Alex Kirshner. He took the 247 composite over the past 5 years, and in January he said, okay, here's the states that produce the most blue chip talent, 4 and 5 stars. Well, Florida ranked second in the nation over that period by producing 226 4 and 5 star players. They were only behind Texas, who had 229. Florida actually had more than Texas in 2015. And I think it was 2013, and they tied in 2013, and Florida had more in 2016. I think I might have that year off, but whatever. The data's right. Anyway, Florida had 13.6% of the national blue chip pool. Okay. Well, California ranks third behind Florida and Texas with 199 for the period and 12%. Okay. And yes, USC is out there, but let's remember that. When Kelly came into Oregon, they only produced 9 blue chips the entire 4 years he was there. So you're talking about a huge amount of talent compared to what he had in Oregon that he would have in either Florida or California. So that shouldn't be a problem for him as he sees it anyway. He's going to have competition from USC out west. He's going to have all kinds of competition in Florida for that talent. Okay, and when Kelly came into Oregon, they had averaged in the Bilotti era from 2002 to 2008. And I went back to 2002 again, just as a reminder. That's when recruiting rankings become a lot more trustworthy. And they had averaged national class rankings of 30.7, 6.7 in conference, and they landed less than a half a blue chip a year. So every other year, almost, they were landing a 5-star. And I'm sorry if I'm confusing you with my numbers. But again, ranked about 30th nationally, close to 7th in their conference, and about every other year they were landing a 5-star. Well, Kelly came in and elevated Oregon's recruiting to 17th nationally on average, 3rd in his conference, and was landing 2.5 5-stars per year. Well, if you go over to UCLA, well, over the course of the entire modern recruiting era, they have averaged about 25th, so better than 30.7 that Oregon averaged before he got there. And rather than 7th, they're already averaging 4.4 in their conference, and they land about the same amount of 5-stars with about one every other year. Well, if you look at Jim Mora's era, he already elevated it. So they're already averaging during his era about 14th nationally, 2.6 in conference each year, and almost a 5-star every year. So all those numbers to say this. It's a better situation than he walked into at Oregon with a huge amount of talent as compared to what he had there. So if I'm Chip Kelly, and again, I'm sorry for all those numbers and getting stumbling all over him, but would have a better talent situation in either school than he had at Oregon. He's going to have premium talent to choose from. He is going to have competition, and then he's going to have a better situation. I think the tougher talent rebuild is actually at Florida as compared to their competition. Because while UCLA may not have as much talent, Florida has fallen off in their conference and has not recruited as well in their conference under Jim McElwain in the past few years.
Yeah, so what you're basically saying is you can see why Jim Mora was fired because he recruited well, but couldn't coach the guys up to
Right.
basically being second, third best team in the Pac-12. So you're right. Compared to talent, he walks into there with a roster that should be competing for the Pac-12 championship. You go to Florida, and I think the advantage Florida has when you look at that is SEC East, not SEC as in general. So, Bill, you and I talk about, hey, win your conference, and that might get you into the playoff. But when you kind of whittle that down just a little bit more, and what he would walk into at Florida was, well, you can get to the SEC championship game because in the East, you only have to really worry about Georgia. I mean, Tennessee has recruited about as well as Florida has in the last couple of years, or the last few years under Butch Jones, and now he's gone as well. But you kind of have to look at, if you can shrink it down even more, is what can you do as far as success in as far as talent and recruiting, how you're going, and you really only have to worry about Georgia and the SEC East, and that can, and just like Jim McElwain's first 2 years, you get that, you can end up with finding yourself in Atlanta. So with Chip Kelly, and if we think he is the coach to get Florida to that next step, and if we think he could represent Florida better in Atlanta than Jim McElwain did, and the talent gap is not that far from Florida and Georgia, given the last 4 years or so, Georgia's kind of separating the gap in the last couple of years. But if he walks into that Florida situation, it really is, if you look at the SEC East, hey, you really only have to worry about Georgia as far as a talent that may be just a little bit better than what you have.
Yeah, but I will say this. I think that he's got a pretty good path to get to the championship game in either conference. Yes, Georgia is what they are, and they're going to have to go through them. They look like they could be a rising power in the East. But I think one thing you have to ask yourself is, does he feel comfortable recruiting in Florida as compared to California? Because he has already landed DeAnthony Thomas and Eric Armstead out of California that were both 5-stars, and brought them to Oregon. And 3 of the 4 classes he brought in Oregon, the highest rated recruit was from California. So we know he has an understanding of the area, and he has the chops to get it done over there. And so is he willing to go out and do what he has to do to assemble the staff to recruit in Florida? All that to say this, I still think he's coming to Florida, but I think while the money and prestige factors and the spotlight that I think he desires are better suited at Florida, I think the recruiting situation is maybe even a little friendlier for him if he were to go to UCLA. So I don't think that would be a factor necessarily in Florida's favor.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a good point there. We both kind of look at the recruiting angle of it, and I do think Florida overall is the best talent, but like you said, competition really kind of maybe equals that out for both schools, looking at it that way. So, Bill, you and I've gotten this question a lot, and I'll kind of end our podcast. You got anything else before I go this route? Before I go this way with it?
I don't know if you want to talk about this, Matt, but just because of some of the developments, do you want to talk about which quarterbacks Florida could turn to if Corral and Florida part ways, or do you want to save that? Because I heard some interesting things.
Well, I mean, you brought it up, so I guess we kind of just have to go that way now. Or it could be a really, really good tease.
Well, we can tease it if you want. It's up to you, buddy.
No, go for it. Go ahead.
Well, I have heard that they may circle back on somebody who had looked at them as a favorite from Georgia. And it's not Jaron Williams, and it's not Trevor Lawrence. And it'd be none other than Justin Fields. Actually heard that last night, that they may circle back around, and there might be some potential mutual interest there. So I don't know if it'll happen, but
yeah, look at it this way. I don't know if, and I don't think it would happen either, but hey, look, you do yourself a disservice if you're a new head coach, knowing he already had interest in Florida anyway. Things have changed. You do yourself a disservice by at least not making a phone call, engaging his interest.
Yeah, you got to at least call. So listen, I heard that from one person. I don't have bombshell information on that, but I'm just saying, if you're that guy and you've seen Fromm out there doing fairly well, and you already had interest in Florida, and then suddenly here comes Chip Kelly, and you look at his numbers of Masoli and Deron Thomas and Marcus Mariota and Dennis Dixon before him, and you see what he's capable of, I've got to tell you, I'd be tempted. And if not him, if that doesn't work out, if that's just a rumor, or maybe there's not much interest and that was just phone call and that's as far as it goes, I'd like to see him look at Joey Gatewood from Bartram Trail High School south of Jacksonville. He's an Auburn commitment. He's 6'4", 230, has a similar frame, I think, to Mariota, and maybe not as quick twitch in the running game, but he's a guy that can move, and he's a guy that is a dual threat that can hurt you with his legs and his arms. I haven't really researched the guy because never thought he was a candidate for Florida, but that'd be a phone call I'd make too.
Yeah, I think, Jaron Williams did decommit from Kentucky last week after a Miami visit. Could Florida get back into sweepstakes if they name a head coach soon? You kind of fit Jaron Williams' his skill set a little bit. That's one name to watch out for. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, I think that ship probably has sailed. He looks like Alabama lean right now. That's who I'm thinking of, if I'm thinking of it the right way. But yeah, there are some names out there that Joe Milton was a hot name last summer from the Orlando area, and would Chip Kelly's system be a fit for him as well. I know he's kind of calmed down a little bit. He was a hot name before the camp circuit last year and the like. But it was kind of when we were talking about Florida maybe kind of shifting their offense toward the more mobile quarterback. Well, to get Chip Kelly, that's a given.
Yeah, that's right. And it's interesting because it opens up a whole new group of players that you and I probably haven't been paying attention to as much this year because we weren't expected to deal with mobile quarterbacks. And it's a place where you could see guys shine like Kadarius Toney. Maybe they're not the best passers in the world, but guys that are dynamic enough with their legs to draw defenses in, and that opens up the passing lane. So who knows?
Yep. Bill, where I was going to go before we dove into that, and I'm glad we did because that's a lot of people are interested in that too. But you and I have gotten the question, so we'll give our best shot to answer the question. But is Chip Kelly the next coach at Florida, in your opinion? And when can we expect an announcement?
Hey, let me ask Scott Strickland. Hey, Scott. I say yes. Everything we've heard leads us to believe this, that yes, Chip Kelly, we think, is going to be the coach at Florida. I believe that's probably going to happen. Could something have gone sideways at the last minute? Yes, it could have. Maybe UCLA did throw crazy money at him, and Florida feels like, hey, we got Frost sitting here for the same money willing to do it. We don't see a whole lot of difference. I mean, that's on them. I think he'll be the guy, and I think it will probably be announced based on what we're hearing now, probably next Sunday or Monday. That's a guess. That part's a guess.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that too. Of course, we've discussed that you and I have a lot of the same sources there, and we are hearing a lot of the same stuff there. So we think Chip Kelly, we both think it will be later, probably Sunday, Monday after the Florida State game. Hey, it would be awesome if Florida beat Florida State on Saturday. We get an announcement that Chip Kelly will be the next head coach of the Gators on Sunday, Monday. Make it a good couple of days for these Gators. But I think we both, from what we're hearing, we do think Chip Kelly will be the next coach of the Gators. Now, we could be wrong. This is, like I said, more of opinion based on what we can gather. We don't know anything for sure. From what we've heard from people who do think they know for sure, that's the vibe we are getting.
Yep. And if not, Charlie Weiss, it will be fine.
Oh, Charlie Weiss. Way to go, Win West Champ.
Yeah, no kidding. Hey, got a couple shout outs before we go, if that's all right.
Shout out.
Yeah, that's right. Lucas Mann, thanks for always sending me info, man. He's one of our longtime listeners and tries to keep us informed. We really appreciate him. Eddie Rojas, who was a new follower today. A lot of you followed today on Twitter. We do appreciate that. Really appreciate you guys supporting us. Kelsey Bodziner, who had a question earlier, and also Kyle McGill. Appreciate all you guys and so many more of you. We're going to try to get back on fan participation and listener participation as we move forward, but don't ever think we don't appreciate it, because we really do.
No, absolutely, yeah. Thanks for everybody who's asking the questions and sending us info out there. It's just been personally, our lives have been crazy lately, but I know people have been asked where the episodes have been, and we did mention that it would be a little bit of a slowdown while I moved and Bill got his family moved, and Will doing his things as well. So, but we will have a FSU preview later on this week. We're supposed to be getting Josh Newberg from the Big Three Roll-Up and FSU's 24/7 site, giving us the FSU side of things. So we'll hit that show on Wednesday and get that out Wednesday night and Thursday on Turkey Day, so people can listen to the podcast while they do their Thanksgiving cooking and their Black Friday shopping. Bill, you gonna be doing some Black Friday shopping?
I'll probably be doing some Black Friday working. It seems the way it goes, man. I know I'll be working Thursday, so.
Yeah, my wife has to work on Friday, so I will be. I'll be watching the 3-year-old running around the new house and falling all over the place and all that good stuff.
That sounds fun, man.
Absolutely, and watching a lot of football, of course. Some good college football games. It's rivalry week comes up this weekend in college football. As we mentioned, we will have a Florida State preview with myself and Will Miles and Josh Newberg of the Big Three Roll-Up and FSU 24/7 site. Bill, anything else, man?
No, but thank you all for all the dialogue today, and we're working continually to get more information. We'll update you as we can. We really appreciate support, and we're looking forward to this as much as you guys are.
Absolutely. If it's announced, we will definitely have another episode of Gators Breakdown. So that's Bill Sykes. You can find Bill on Twitter at RealBSykes. I'm your host of Gators Breakdown, David Waters. You can find me on Twitter at GatorDave_SCC. And it is rivalry week, so go Gators, beat FSU. Guys and girls out there, thanks for listening to this episode of Gators Breakdown.